Today is commemorated across the world as Yom HaZikaron. It's a day that brings out a lot of pain, really, a lot of suffering, and memories, and just different experiences that we would rather avoid, actually. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant to think of the fact that it's not really fair. Does America have Yom HaZikaron? Yeah. How many families do you know who, in America, who feel it? It's like a very huge, giant, big country. And I mean, I'm not detracting in any way. There were people who died here in this country, and it's real. But for some reason, it doesn't bring about an acute pain, because in our land, in Eretz Yisrael, it's a small place, relatively speaking, very small, and there's a lot of pain, a lot. And it always behooves us to take a moment and just think, why? Hashem, what are you thinking? What's going on here? What's the plan? What's the bigger picture? Why all this pain and suffering and struggling? And Ein Eretz Yisrael Nikneit Ela B'Yisurim. To get to the land of Israel takes suffering, struggle, hardship. It's not easy. And when you talk to a family who, God forbid, lost someone, and there's so many of them, the pain is great. And the pain this year is greater than ever, because we just had so many, we're in the middle of so many experiences of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice. And so I think we dedicate the conversation today to this whole notion of self-sacrifice and of understanding, what does God want from us? I'm going to tell you right at the beginning, I don't know. I don't have the answer. And it's not so much about answering the why, but the what. It's just appreciating the what. So I haven't got any magical solutions and answers as to why we do this, and I think we should bring Mashiach and avoid the whole issue in the first place. But for the meantime, while we're in Galut, we're struggling, and there's a real struggle, and as much as there's so much goodness going on, we have to recognize the challenge that's going on in the process. So let's discuss, just in general, the whole notion of why this world is designed in such a way that there's so much agony and suffering built in there. And the only way to get to Eretz Yisrael is through Yisurim. And the only way to get anywhere in life is really through the struggle, and something necessary there. And why is this part of our lives? So I'm going to take it to a different arena. Maybe not as intense. Some struggles are huge. Some struggles are tiny and small and little, relatively speaking. But last week, apologies for missing the share last week, but what happened was, I was in Orlando, and we were getting on a plane, and we had everything ready to go. Sunday morning, bright and early, there was a 7 o'clock flight, and everything was prepared, and I had 2 kids who were going to take a flight. So 2 kids are getting two kids are getting on in the car, the older ones, and driving, and the other ones, everyone's flying. And we booked it months in advance, so prices are good, everything's fine, and everything was flowing perfect. And then we packed the car up, ready to go, all the boxes were left over there, and everything's about to go. And my daughter had a flight, and I wanted to cancel the flight in order to that she should drive. So I called up a few days earlier. They said, so sorry, but $283, that's the cheap one. Sorry, you can't get it back. We can give you back, I think, $90 or something. But the rest is non-refundable. So I'm like, okay, if for $90, forget it. Maybe she'll end up flying, who knows. So I'm not canceling. So I didn't cancel. And then the night before, at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's cancel. Everything's packed. She's driving in 5 hours, so let's just cancel the flight and at least get back $90. So I'm calling up to cancel the flight. They said, we're giving you back a full refund for her ticket. I said, wow, that's so nice. Yep, and also for all the other tickets, because the flight's cancelled. I'm like, what? And what's the next flight? They said, well, the next flight is we can get you a flight on Wednesday morning. This was Sunday. We can get you Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. You can leave, you can go, there's 2 stops, and you'll arrive 7 hours, whatever, and you'll arrive back home at 11 p.m. No kidding, that's what they said. And Friday, we can get you on a direct flight. That's what they said. So I'm like, and what about another airline? Nope, nothing doing. So I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? My wife was awake, packed, everything ready to go. Everything's perfect. And we were wondering the whole time, how are we getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the airport? That was our biggest issue. Told her we don't have to get up at 4:30 anymore. That's good. We're not flying. What's the next option? I don't know. So imagine what happens in a household when that happens. It's called stress and pressure, and everyone gets on edge and like, yeah. And so I'm capturing the moment and I'm saying to myself, for a moment I was also getting stressed, very stressed. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's the plan of action? We've got a lot of kids and I don't know what to do. And I'm trying to call and see and whatever, and then I'm like, okay, there's no flight. Got to realize that very quickly. There's no flight. So my wife's like, why don't we go to the airport and then we'll be there and then we'll be on their heads and they'll see a whole lot of kids and they'll let us go. I said, I'm not sure that's going to work. I don't know. But I said, you know what? Driving's not so bad. Let's just drive. So I sent a text to my kids, when you wake up in the morning at 6 and you want to go, don't go. We're filling up your car with more kids. In the morning, they woke up, they went to daven, whatever, and then 8 o'clock, we filled up the car. I took all the boxes out, and I found the place in which to take the boxes, a truck. And so I paid the guy, I had a rental car, I put it into the other car, and I filled the car up, and my wife sat, and she sent me pictures the whole way, sitting down with my 2 little ones. One's 3, the other one's 5, leaning on her the whole time, and they were not doing well the whole way. And she got into a car and she drove and 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 drove, and it doesn't end that drive. It's a long drive. Yeah. So she was driving. Now I got the boxes. I'm like, how are we getting back? I've got another 3 kids with me. So I'm looking at myself. I'm taking a step back and I'm saying, this is amazing. Like, something incredible is going on in the midst of this whole mishugas. Like, isn't it amazing that I went on to check the flight? I never checked flights before. I assume that they're happening. They don't get cancelled. Like, it didn't happen on the way there. That would have been a disaster. It happened on the way back. Okay, it's not the end of the world now. And now I have this car, and the car didn't leave yet, and it's perfect. And then we're able to fill up the car with another half the kids go inside there. It was perfect. I got the boxes out. This guy in the truck is willing to take them 9 o'clock. How amazing, how perfect everything works out. Then I'm like, okay, now I have another car, another van. And I was wondering the whole Pesach why I had that van. I had it because I wanted to go at 4 o'clock in the morning to Tampa, but I didn't use it. I'm like, now I'll put 1,000 miles on the car in one day. I'm like, okay. So I got into the other car, first I was like, yes, I called the rental car company up and said, you can't join this car, you're going to give it back to Tampa. And then come and take another one. I'm like, Tampa's the other way. That's an hour and a half that way, and then back an hour and a half. I'm not adding 3 hours to my drive. What happens if I give it back in a different airport, like JFK? They said, you can't. I said, but what if I do? So let's take the risk. So I got into the car, and then I'm like, wow, there was so much space in the car. And it was amazing, because after I decided to drop the boxes off, I realized I had space in my car because I was actually driving. And I got into the car and I drove. And I must tell you what happened. It was a very long drive. And something about America that the you know, it's the same exact view the whole way. There's like they changed the state and the speed limit. That's about it. But everything else looks exactly the same down that road. My first time driving. I know you've driven it many times. To me, it was like a big thing to drive. And it's a never-ending drive. But it turned out to be the most pleasant drive ever. It was like, and there was traffic all the way. We left at 11 o'clock, 12 a.m., stopped up at a hotel in the middle. My kids, the first arrived back at 3 a.m. And I arrived back all the way. And we got 12 a.m., we stopped off at a hotel, and then we went wherever. We left after, we had a minyan for Shachris. As I arrived, a bunch of other people arrived. We make up in the morning, 7:45, we davening Shachris, was perfect. Got into the car, drove back, arrived, stopped at Washington, got to see the White House my kids wanted to see, and we learned, and we chilled out. And I got my father-in-law, who was worried about me driving by myself the whole way, so he sat next to me the whole way. That was great. He's like, doesn't like my driving. But it turned out to be the most beautiful trip. Someone told me that he took that same trip, his flight was canceled. I think many people had the same story as I did. And he says, I arrived back and I was so stressed out. And I had like there's like in a certain illness that truckers have when they drive across America back and forth. So they get sick in certain ways. He says, that's when I got it. I went to the doctor, I had that. And he says, I was stressed the whole way. I don't know why this happened. I don't have any explanation of the story. But I'll tell you this much. It was wonderful. I'm not sure I'll do it again. But it was really wonderful. It was just great. And then I'm wondering, why does Hashem send these curveballs to us in life? All the time. Some curveballs are small. Some curveballs are big. But everyone's got that struggle. And if you can live up to it and roll with the punches as they happen, you lead a totally different kind of a life. And so, let's today, on this Yom HaZikaron, which is, those are real struggles. But let's zoom out and understand God's creation a little bit, to the best that humans of us can understand. Because when we get on board with the program, you'll see you lead a whole different life. It's like beautiful. Life becomes exciting. You relax into the moment. The worst moment, God forbid, what to everybody else seems like an absolute terror, and you see people happy, relaxed, living it up, no matter what. All it takes is changing perspective and understanding things in a slightly different way. So, when Hashem created the world, God's creation of the world, what does God do? He creates the world, and there's a problem in creation. There's an inherent problem. Is that the world's created by Hashem. We like to think of it as like when you make a house. So you make a house and you walk away from the house, right? The house doesn't need you after you made it. And the guy who created your car, the mechanic or the whatever, these car builders, or the skyscraper builders, you don't need them after they create the model they created. The exception is the creation of the world. The creation of the world can never detach itself from its creator. It always has to be aligned and attached to the creator. Now, King David HaMelech captures this in the following pasuk. He says in Kuf Yutet in Tehillim, he says, Le'olam Hashem devarcha nitzav b'shamayim. He says, Hashem, your word is always standing erect in the heaven. Hashem didn't, how long ago did Hashem create the world? 5,783 years ago, we say, right? Mm-hmm. Wrong. That's how long ago he made it the first time. But how long ago did Hashem actually create the world?
All the time. He's always creating it.
This moment. He created it 1 second ago. That's how long ago.
Wow.
And you're sitting in his presence right now. He's creating the world now. That's what it means, Leolam Hashem Dvarcha Nitzav Bashamayim. And the reason is very simple. Your word with which you created heaven is there forever. It doesn't stop. Hashem says, Yehi Rakia, Yehi Rakia, let there be a heaven, let there be a heaven. And he keeps on saying it and he keeps on repeating it and it doesn't stop. If it stops, it disappears. You might notice that we see a little bit of this in life. You notice how it's fascinating, right? The day looks like it's here forever. Yeah. Look outside and look at daylight. Daylight is it's a light. Daylight comes and disappears. And after it goes, there's no more day. The day is gone. And you stand in amazement and wonder at noticing how days come and go. And then again and again. What you're looking at is the throb of life. You breathe in and you're alive. If you don't keep doing that, you can't live. You got to breathe and breathe and breathe and breathe. In, out, in, out, in, out. Till, well, keep on doing it. And so Hashem is doing the same thing. He's creating the world. There's no space that's void of Hashem, right? Why is that? Because if I make a house, so I didn't make the house. What I took was raw materials, put them together and made a house. You can't make anything in this world. You can change one entity to another entity. You've never experienced what it means to create yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, because you can't. You're a human being. Human beings are not able to create things.
The only thing that you can think of creating is pregnancy, and that's a huge miracle.
Yep. When a baby's born, it's like, wow. It's amazing.
You're just
where did that come from?
a carrier.
Right. Correct. But that's the closest thing we get to
It's just being the vessel.
Right. That's the closest we get to creation of yesh me'ayin, of something from nothing. Which is why everyone's like a gazillion-dollar industry around that. Because at its core, it's your ability to resemble God. And so you feel divine in that. So imagine you have a thought in your mind. Right? That's the closest you can get to it. If you have a thought in your mind, now the problem is the thought's not real. It doesn't actually exist in the physical world, it's in your mind. But imagine you're imagining something, and then you stop imagining it. What happens to the thought the second you stop thinking about it? The thought is only a thought while your mind is focused on it. The second your mind stops being focused on the thought, what happens to the thought? The thought disappears. Hashem is creating the world, and it's all like a thought, except it's not a thought, it's actually real. The second he stops creating it, what happens? Disappears. Now, that's a very comforting thought. It means that you're never outside of Hashem's space. How far is Hashem from you? He's not 5,700 years ago. He's now, in this moment. He's creating you now, here, this moment, this experience, direct from Hashem. So it's comforting. I'm in Hashem's space all the time. What's the problem? There's an inherent problem. What's causing Hashem to keep on creating the world? What's the energy that's maintaining this creation going constantly? Why is he thinking this thought all the time? When you're thinking a thought, at some point you're like, I'm bored, think about something else. So if Hashem's creating the world and it's all, so to speak, a figment of his imagination, which he makes to be real, what's fueling this? It's like a car, it doesn't drive without fuel. So in order for Hashem's power to keep on existing, you need fuel. If Hashem would have, understand the logic of here, if Hashem would have created the world once and then walked away from it, then you don't need Hashem's power. Just like when you create a house, you don't need to keep on fueling the house. But if it's like a thought that keeps on going, so if you don't fuel it, it doesn't go. It's more like a car that if it doesn't have gas, cannot go. So someone needs to fuel the light of Hashem to be present in this world. Make sense?
Yeah.
It means Hashem needs to have a reason, and it needs to be focused on the reason of why is this world being. So what's Hashem's reason for the world being? The reason is, Hashem looks and he says, okay, what's my goal? What's the purpose? And he envisions in his purpose, it's called a dira betachtonim, a home in this world, in the lowly world. He envisions a Jew in this world doing a mitzvah, learning Torah, just being, and he's like, that's what I want. Let me go build everything around that. Like when you want to build a house. You know how you build houses? Most people, when they decide to build a beautiful house, they're imagining the interior decoration. They're sitting down, they're picturing, wow, I'm sitting in the lounge and I'm like chilling out on the couch. They're imagining the couch and they're imagining the color of the wallpaper. Now, in order to get there, I have to go through a whole process. But what I want to get to is, I want to get to the goal. So to get to the goal, I've got to go through the process. Hashem has a mission in this world. The mission is that there should be Jews who keep Torah mitzvahs. That's what it says in the first verse in the Torah. Bereishis boroi elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, and Rashi says Bereshit, bet Reshit. There are two bet who are called Reshit, the beginning, the cause of it all. Israel, the Jews, and Torah. And so Hashem has this vision of a Jew keeping Torah and in this world, and he says, I'm building everything around that. So the first time round, there was no Jew and there was no Torah yet in the world. So there was no Jew to keep a Torah. There was Torah. There wasn't a Jew to keep Torah. So Hashem's, he the first time round, he gave us a gift. Ever since then, there is always a human being, even before Avraham Avinu formally accepted Judaism, there was Adam Harishon and many other people afterwards. And every time, through their recognizing Hashem, they maintain the light of Hashem in this world. So Hashem is like a fire. Hashem Elokecha esh ochlahu. It's a fire. And what you're doing is, you're keeping down the fire, you're maintaining the fire and maintaining the power and fueling it through your being. That's what we're doing. That's the power of Torah and mitzvahs. So the Torah and mitzvahs, which you perform, are not irrelevant, like I'm doing a mitzvah. When you're doing a mitzvah, when you're learning Torah, you are at the epicenter of existence and of creation of Hashem in this world. So if we go back to an analogy of fire, when you light a fire, like when you have a car is basically running on fire. So if you light a fire, what do you need for the fire to keep going?
Oxygen.
Oxygen and?
And the material to burn.
You need some wood, and you need a wick, and you need something to keep the fire going. And the fire will go so long as you have a wick or wood and the oil. The second that stuff is gone, it's finished. It's interesting because that stuff is burning. Yeah, you need something to burn. Fire needs to consume something. So long as there's something to consume, the fire keeps consuming. Take away the ability to consume, what happens? The fire ceases to be. Hashem's word, halokot dvarai ke'esh ne'um Hashem, it says. Hashem's word is like fire. It has no place to rest in this world. What we're doing is fueling the fire. You want to keep the world in existence. What you want to do is keep fueling the fire. How do you keep fueling the fire? You're a Jew in this world, and you keep on performing Torah mitzvahs. That's how. Torah mitzvahs are divided into 3 parts. That's what it says in Pirkei Avot. על 3 דברים העולם עומד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. The world stands on 3 things. They are Torah, work, and kindness. Now those 3 translate to us into Torah. Avodah is, we don't have korbanos today, that's avodah. Tefillah, davening, and tzedakah, charity. Now note what happens when you do all these 3. right? These three things essentially encompass and envelop your personality. Well, take a look, start with avoida, with davening. Davening means I'm sitting down and I need to recognize in my mind and in my heart, in my kavanah, inside me, to recognize the existence of Hashem. Davening is not actionable. Davening is done in your thought. That's how you daven. Even though you have to utter the words when you daven, but tefillah belo kavanah, keguf belo neshama. So the neshama, the soul of davening, is the kavanah. What does that mean? What happens during davening? We tend to think of davening as an experience of asking Hashem for what we need. Davening is really the fuel that's going to keep Hashem creating this world. Okay? So now look at the analogy differently. When you're davening, when you're doing a davening, avodah and Torah and kindness in this world, what you're doing is you're creating the wood and the fuel which is going to burn in your relationship with Hashem so that Hashem can keep on being in this world. Okay? So we're fueling divine, powerful energy in this world. How do you fuel divine energy? When you daven, here's what goes on. You think to yourself, okay, davening is getting into a meditation. So there's a very powerful tefillah that we have. It's probably the most common tefillah that we do of the day. Note what the tefillah is. We wake up in the morning right away and we do a whole lot of them. Brachot. What is the bracha? Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. English.
Bless you, God. Okay,
so first thing is Baruch means to bring down. Right? Lavrich. So I'm bringing down that Hashem is God of the world. Yeah. Did you notice how we first say Hashem Elokeinu and then we say Melech HaOlam? Why is the word Elokeinu necessary over there? Why wouldn't you make a bracha and say Baruch atah Hashem Melech HaOlam? I bring down that Hashem is King of the world. Why must you say Elokeinu? The Elokeinu is the key.
Oh, I was thinking the Creator.
Creator? Our Creator.
What's our
Elokeinu.
Our Creator.
Our God.
It's our.
What he's saying to you is this. You need to recognize God yourself. You don't need anyone else to recognize. It's critical and key that you accept him as your God in your life. That's what it means, Elokeinu. If you accept him as Elokeinu, then the natural reaction and consequence will be Melech HaOlam. He'll be king of the whole universe. Because we Jews stand at the epicenter of creation. A Jew is the foundation of creation. Where you are is the core and foundation of everything. All God needs is for you to recognize him into your life. And that's very, very powerful. Because what it means is that when you find yourself in a position in life and you're fretting because you're angry and frustrated with whatever's going on around you and you're really struggling, and we always think that Hashem needs to do something to answer the problem. That if this happens, then my problem will be solved. If he only finds me the money, if I only get the shidduch that I need, if such and such transpires, then I'll be okay. And Hashem says, ding, not true, dong. If you recognize Hashem in your life now in this space, and you accept him as Elokeinu, as your God, and you accept it, you will see right away that he will be Melech HaOlam. He'll be king of everything else around him. What Hashem is looking for is you and how you accept him on yourself. And when you do, miracles happen around you. I was talking to a young lady this week. She came over. I don't know her, but she came. And she has a problem in her marriage. So she's just married a couple years. Fresh. Ish. And she's got a problem. And the problem in the marriage is a little machine called a phone. That's what it is. She says, I don't know what to do. I can't get the guy's attention. He comes home, he sits down on the couch, and whenever I want attention, I have to fight against and compete with that little machine. It's in his hand, and for hours, he's just sitting for hours on end. She says that YouTube thing has so much on it that it just goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and he goes to work and he comes back, and when I ask him for like attention, hello, what does he do? Nothing. Just ignores totally. Like, oh, okay, I'll help you with, yeah, fine. And she says everything's great in life, just amazing, and there's no, sometimes I wish it wouldn't be so great. I wish the guy would just like yell at me, just scream, notice me. Nothing. So I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And she said, I want the marriage to work. I need this marriage to work. I'm not going anywhere. It's got to work. What do we do? I dive into Hashem. I asked Hashem to help me, and nothing happened so far. So she's sitting over there, and I'm listening for a while. And I saw that, I'm like, you're looking for an answer, right? Like, what do you want? You want me to tell you how to change him, how to get him to, like, call him in and say, Chaim Yankel, you gotta notice your wife. Stop ignoring her. That's what it seemed like, right? I said to her, I have an idea for you. I said, look, what are you feeling? What's your experience right now? What are you feeling? And we went through each one of her feelings. And it was phenomenal. She's feeling hurt. And we sat down in the feeling of hurt. And just like felt it. So just feel it. She felt the pain. Okay, she says, okay, I felt it now. It didn't go away. And then she felt rejection. She said, when I go inside and I talk to him, I feel such rejection. Felt the rejection. Like, yeah. And then what? And then what you want to do is something very simple. You want to recognize Hashem as your melech, as your king. All you want to do is feel how Hashem is with you in this space. And here's what's going to happen. If you walk in, realize what you want from your husband is you want something from him, right? Basically, you're feeling lonely and rejected and hurt. And you don't want to feel lonely and rejected and hurt. So you want that guy, poor fellow, that he should solve the problem for you. So you keep on going to him and saying, solve my problem already. She said, I don't say that. I said, yeah, but your energy says it. The whole energy in the room when he walks in is, hi, I'm lonely, can you be there for me? And he's not able to do that. If you want to change it, what you do is realize no one can solve your problems, not even your husband. There's only one who can solve your problems. And who is he? Hashem Echad. And what you want to do is say, I'm drawing down Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem to be my king. If he's your king, if he's your Elokeinu, guarantee you he'll be Melech HaOlam. He'll be king of everything else around you. The second you accept Hashem as king over you, your problems in the world around you will go away. It's miraculous. Try make miracles. So it was amazing. We sat down and she felt the disappointment and the hurt and the rejection. It was very powerful. We sat down for a long time trying to feel that rejection. And I said to her, okay, now how do you want to feel in your marriage? She says, I want to feel like taken care of and loved. I said, okay, do you ever feel that? She says, yeah, last Shabbos, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my husband came over to me and he said, you go to sleep, I'll take care of the baby. And she says, and that felt like $1 million. I was like, I couldn't believe that he said that. Couldn't believe he was talking to me. Like he said some words. I said, good. You see that feeling? Take that feeling and feel it now. and say, Hashem, you're Melech, you're King. I got that feeling from you already now. Don't wait for a feeling to come from something that's going to happen externally. Rather, bring the feeling down yourself. That's the key. That's the Jewish secret. We make brachas and we don't say Hashem Elokeinu Melech, Hashem Melech HaOlam. We say, I'm going to Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu. When Hashem is Elokeinu, then he'll become Melech HaOlam. The problem will go away. In other words, imagine you come home and you do the work yourself. And so you're feeling lonely. Hashem, I'm feeling lonely. And accept the loneliness. And allow Hashem's presence to fill your beauty, your whole being up with his beauty. And feel God's presence. You know what happens next if you do? You're going to start feeling good. And when you start feeling good, and then you feel like Hashem is giving me everything I need, you're going to walk home and your husband is going to see a light in you. He'll notice someone who's just excited, happiness inside you. And you'll be like, what's going on here? What's wrong? And you just be you. Now you can say, how was your day? You can actually see the other person for what they are. Because you're feeling good yourself. The first order of the day for a Jew in davening is to see Hashem's presence where he is now. Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu. First accept that God is your God. That everything's amazing. Make everything amazing before it's amazing. That's the point. If you notice one thing that's good in your life, pay attention to that good thing and exacerbate it and make it huge and just focus on how amazing that is. You have a choice at any given moment. Do you want to feel sad even if 99% of your life is sad, or do you want to feel awesome if 1% of your life is awesome? And if you focus on that 1%, what's going to happen is you're going to see Hashem's presence everywhere, and you're going to feel good, and you're going to see more of it. It's how we make miracles. Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. So that's part one. That's called avodah. That's work. It's hard work. It's very difficult. And you need to feel Hashem's presence in your heart. See, it's going to be real. That's the problem. If you're pretending and you don't actually feel good, then it doesn't work. But how am I supposed to make myself feel good? It's really hard. Because to make yourself feel good means to focus all the negative, let it go, and focus on the good stuff. What's happening is you're bringing Hashem into this world. Remember what we said? Hashem is like a fire. And in order to keep the fire of Hashem down in this world, what we need to have is someone there recognizing Hashem. That someone is you. And it's not like Hashem, he's not out to get you. He's empowering you. He's telling you, when you recognize me, if you accept me into your life now, and you feel how great it is to have Hashem in your life now, you're burning up all the negativity of the world. That's part one. Then you want to continue that. That was in my thought, in my heart. Now I want to bring it down and speak about it. So that was tefillah. Now comes Torah. What's Torah? Torah is what we're doing now. What are we doing now? We're talking Torah, right? So the way to learn Torah is by speaking. And when we speak Torah, what happens to us? We see the world in one way. When you go to a shir, what do you want to happen? You saw the world this way, and you want to flip the conversation, and you want to see the world in a different way, in light. I saw the world, I felt like it was dark, and I saw the world in light. That's you and your power. You're changing the existence of the world from dark to light all the time. When you do, you're giving the raison d'etre for the world, the reason for being. The world's reason for being is so that there could be a Jew in this world at the epicenter, flipping it over and changing it. In thought, in speech, and in action. Thought is your davening, the way you make brachas. It's your feeling different about the world. That, by the way, is probably the hardest one. I think, we all the time, okay, so why are you doing this to me, God? Why am I suffering? And we get frustrated and you want something to happen to solve the problem. Second, you accept that Hashem is like, you solve the problem. and you become Make Me Hashem Elokeinu, you'll watch things around you transform. It's unbelievable. Part 1. Part 2 is Tefillah, is Torah. Torah is you talk about Hashem's words and you bring it out into the open. And then you move into action. Action is mitzvahs, or tzedakah at its core. You know what happens when you give tzedakah? A Meshulach once told me, he goes around asking people for money. He says, I do something incredible. I walk into Manhattan, I walk into a guy's office, and I flip the whole office around. I'm sure you do. He's like, come inside, I'm going to collect money. So I walk inside, everyone else is coming into that office to ask him for business, to strike some business deal with him. And what am I coming for? I'm coming for one thing. I want to bring God into your life. When you give tzedakah, you're going to make the world divine. Notice what's happening. The world is void of Hashem. The world doesn't notice Hashem. And what happens is, we're about to flip the conversation and make it divine and make it holy. And so when I exercise my Torah, my davening, and my tzedakah, which is thought, speech, and action, I flip the conversation on the world. You know what happens when you don't live this way? Most of us don't live this way. So there's a harsh reality that settles in your life. What you'll notice is that when people speak and when they live life, it's anything but what you see. We all harbor feelings inside of us. And the feelings are stuck. They're trapped inside of us. Deep, deep, deep inside of us. And they have nowhere to go. You notice when a parent is speaking to their child, it's anything but the conversation that's going on. What the parent is really saying to the child is, I grew up this way and I had a yearning and whatever, or I messed up in my childhood and I need you to prove my value and my existence in life. So the energy of the parent is, I'm feeling lacking. You are my ticket to heaven. Can you be normal? And then the parent wonders why the child's not responding. And it can go on for years and for decades, by the way. It happens in marriage. That example I said before. You get married and you don't care about the other person. You're just lonely. And so you want the other person to be there for you. So I want the other person to solve my problem. And then the guy's on his phone all the time. You know why he's on his phone all the time? Because he's stuck. He's trapped in his own stuff. And so your energy is blocking his energy. And what's happening in life all the time is energies are blocking us. And you know what the greatest fun in life is? What we love doing is thinking negative. So it's like, I knew it. I knew I was a loser. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I was inadequate. And that proves my point now. And you keep on seeing proof of whatever you believe to be true in yourself. And something you believe in. If you feel inadequate, guarantee you this, you'll keep on seeing inadequacy all around. Everywhere you go, you'll keep on corroborating and proving the point that you're inadequate. And then the energy will go. And people live lives, full lifetimes. And it's the saddest thing. Then they go take pills to get away from the pain. And medication to run away from the pain. We got to tackle it head on. You know how you tackle it head on? Say you messed up, okay? There's something called teshuvah. Teshuvah is a very powerful force. I think we were taught it wrong. We were taught that teshuvah means you did something wrong, go do something right. Right? You know what teshuvah means? It means sit yourself down. This is hard work. Try this out. Sit down and look at yourself and say, what am I feeling now? Sit back, relax, get some vocabulary. You need some vocabulary and say, what am I feeling now? And you'll notice, with that lady, I sat down and she was feeling, the most powerful feeling was rejection, loneliness, and hurt. Now, I don't want to feel any of those feelings. I hate those feelings, so I'm trying to run away from them to something else. I'm trying to get away from them. Tshuva doesn't mean that. Tshuva means the world is divine. Everything in the world is divine, including those feelings of rejection and disappointment and loneliness that you have. Those are divine, inspired, godly feelings in you. Instead of running away from them, walk right into it. And we've discussed this before, but I'll tell you it again. You want to make the world burn with divine power. How do you do that? Sit down. I'm not running away from this feeling of rejection. I'm feeling very rejected. And you feel it in your bones. You let it run through you. You feel it for 5 minutes, however long it takes, until you let the feeling go. Because you know what feelings are? They get stuck inside you and they never get out. And the Yetzer Hara is dying to express himself. So let him express himself. And the feeling settles in you. And then what you do is, and you need to try this out yourself, then you have that feeling fuel your connection to Hashem. Because that feeling is the fuel of connection to God. How does the feeling fuel it? Very simple. You say to yourself, I'm feeling very, very rejected. Okay? I'm not trying to feeling not rejected. I'm feeling rejected, and I know that Hashem is right here in this. He's with me in this horrible, harsh place that I'm in. I'm using my kavanah and say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. He's my God. And when you accept the divine power into your life, he becomes Melech HaOlam. He'll go all the world around. You know the story of Eliezer ben Dordaya? He was a big sinner. Did everything wrong. He rebelled against Hashem in every way possible. And one day he knew about a woman, and he wanted to sin with her. So he traveled across seven rivers to get to her. That's a lot of addiction, where you keep the addiction going for so long. And he arrived, and she looks at him. She says, Eliezer ben Dordaya, this is the Gemara. She says, you have no way to undo what you did. There's no hope for you. And he's like, no one tells Eliezer ben Dordaya what to do. He says, don't you dare say that I can't do teshuvah. So he walked away from her, and he put himself down between two mountains, and he cried and cried and cried in the end until he died in teshuvah. And a heavenly voice came out and announced, Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya is invited straight to Gan Eden. That's the power which we all can employ. Okay, not to the degree that he did. And what you want to do is take whatever negative experience you're feeling now. She told him something. You know what she made him feel? Inadequate, rejected, that. So he sat there, no way. And he felt that feeling until he felt Hashem's presence in his life. And so every time you got a feeling, stop asking God to solve your problem. Don't stop. Ask him to solve your problem. This lady comes over to me, and I said to her, you asked Hashem to help you, right? She says, yeah. And he didn't tell me that I should feel my feelings and then I should do this and whatever. And then what are you telling me? She told me, by the way, she says, I listened to your classes, and I listened to a couple of them on the channel, and I shut it down because it's not true. You can't feel feelings and something happens. At the end of our conversation, I said, how do you feel now? She says, I don't know, maybe it is true. Maybe it works. Because she walked out and she was smiling. Because what happens is, when you allow Hashem's presence to sink into you and you allow Hashem to envelop you, and you say, Hashem, I'm feeling this feeling. And then that feeling itself, you do teshuvah on it, means you flip it over. You change over that feeling. So you say, I'm feeling rejected. It's horrible. I'm struggling, Hashem. Hashem answered you. The answer was, okay, I got you. I'm with you in your space. Accept me and feel me, and Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu, and then he becomes Melech HaOlam. Things change around you. It's unbelievable how things change around you. The world just starts synchronizing with the beauty of Hashem. That's what happens. So whenever we struggle, and it's life is a struggle, even in the harshest struggles ever. And no, you can't earn a right to tell someone who's been through the harshest thing ever. But for lack of any other way to do it, what does Hashem want from us? Hashem wants his presence to be felt in this whole world. He's not telling us why we suffer. He's not letting us know any of the challenges that are there. But what he's telling us is something very simple. That if you live your life and you start inviting Hashem in all the time. How do you invite Hashem in? In your thought, speech, and action. Hashem wants happy people. Hashem created the world for you as a Jew to be present in this world, to look around and to say, I feel God's presence everywhere. And how do you do that? You feel the absolute rejection. And then you invite Hashem to become Melech HaOlam, to become king of that situation. You say, Hashem, I'm feeling you right here. And it takes real hard work. When you do, the miracles happen around you. That trip I had, I don't know why it happened. I walked into shul in the morning, and a guy says, what are you doing here? I thought you were flying at 7 o'clock. Why are you here at 7:30 for Shacharis on Sunday? And I said, the flight was canceled. He says, you know why it was canceled? For sure it was going to crash. It's going to crash. And if Hashem, that's what I said. It's not going to crash because there is no flight. So why did it happen? No idea. But I do know that when something happens in life, if I feel the stress, and then I'm like, Hashem Elokeinu, Melech HaOlam, and my thought, speech, and action is aligned with God to the point that I'm actually ecstatic in the midst of the struggle. I'm excited. I'm happy. Sounds like insanity. It does. But it's possible. And when you do it, still don't know why we had to go that trip. But it was such an amazing trip. It was such a bonding trip. I connected with my kids. It was so beautiful. Even my shver. We just had a great connection. And that's it. Life goes amazing. It's not that it was going to crash. The whole life is going to crash. But the struggle is real. And when you accept Hashem in your life, Hashem Elokeinu, you recognize the world is ready to burn Hashem into it. That's fuel for divine power. Why do we have struggle? So that we have fuel to burn in our relationship with God. And when we do, you watch Hashem becomes king of everything else. And beautiful things happen around you.